So today we're going to talk about Git, a tool that you will be using every day for the entirety of this course and probably for the rest of your developer career. What is Git? Git is distributed version control, meaning it keeps track of changes made to files. These changes are stored on your machine and on a remote server. A common remote server is GitHub, which we will be using, as I mentioned, GitHub. So basically, Git is like a track changes function in Word, if you know what I mean, but for multiple files in a repository. These files can be any type, but it works best with text files. It's usually used by developers to track all the changes made in source code and also to collaborate on projects, since it supports working on different parts of the code and then merging them into one. Since Git also keeps the whole history of the changes, the developers can also go back to another point in time and adjust things there. But why will you need this functionality if you're going to be coding solo? Well, those advantages also stand while coding solo. For example, Git allows you to see what changes you made. It also allows you to easily roll back changes if needed. And I'm not talking about Control Z undo, but actually going back in time. And it also allows you to have a backup of your code and for others to have the ability to view, comment, and edit it. Plus, learning Git is essential in the world of software development, believe me. And one more thing, you should definitely remember the name Linus Torvalds. He's the main developer behind Git and the Linux kernel. He's a very popular developer. So how do you use Git? It's pretty simple. You just need to download it from this site. I will paste the link right here. You just click download. I already have it, so I won't do it. So you don't need to download it now because I will be demonstrating it. And if you don't understand anything, you can also ask questions and watch the lecture afterwards. So I will talk about the simplest workflow of Git. Feel free to take notes, but as I mentioned, you can basically rewatch the lecture if you're missing something. So I will first of all open up my console. I will zoom in a bit for people to see. I hope that's okay. Let me just, I created a demonstration folder for this. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna cd into that directory. Okay, so now once we are in our directory or repository, I will call it repository from now on, we need to first of all initialize it because we can see that right now it's completely empty. So what we do to initialize a repository is the command git init from the word initialize. Sorry, init. So basically nothing happened except for now we have a hidden file called .git. It basically stores everything needed for Git to work on this repository. And what it means as well is that right now this folder is a legit repository. If I'm talking understandably, I hope. Okay. So to see Git in action, let me create a new file in this empty repository. Let's call it index.html. Okay, we can see it. We have an empty index.html file at the bottom, and I will add some content to it. Some div hello world. Let me just repeat. Yeah, I forgot the first argument. Okay, so we can check right now that index contains the text div hello world. Okay, so now Git needs to track these changes, and we can see the status of Git by typing git status. So what that means is it says that we have untracked files. You see the index.html is red, which means it's untracked. So we need to stage the new file, and we do that by typing in git add. Git adds the command to add a file to staging. The syntax is git add and the file name, or some trick, you can just put a dot and it basically stages every file you have. So git add dot, we run git status again, and we see that the new file is being tracked right now. It's green. It's no longer red. Now to actually tell Git to record the changes that we added, we need to commit those files. When committing files, you must also specify a message. And when typing in the message, be specific, because other people will see this message and it should help them determine what you have changed with your specific commit. So committing in Git is pretty straightforward. You just type in git commit. And as I mentioned, you need to specify a message. So flag M and the message in double quotes. So my first commit. Okay, so everything's successful. And that's basically it. We have successfully committed our first commit. And this history is currently being kept in our local computer. So we can make additional changes to our file by adding, let's say, a paragraph. Okay. And now, since we made our first commit and we made some changes to that file, we can see the difference between the files by typing in the command git diff from the word difference. And we can see that it gives us the difference that we added a line plus I'm a paragraph. Let me just highlight it for you right here. This was the original file, and it says that we added one line, I'm a paragraph. I hope that makes sense. So we can also commit this file. My second commit. First error, changes not staged, because we didn't stage anything. So git add dot, and then git commit. Now we can see the whole history of our commits by using git log. So we can see, there we go, offer me, the date, and the message, which is my first commit, and then my second commit. So 2 commits in our git log. And now I will demonstrate the power of Git by returning to one of our previous versions of index.html. First of all, let's see what index.html is currently. So type index. Right now it's div hello world and p I'm a paragraph. So now let me show you another command, git checkout. What it does is it specifies another branch to check out to. I will tell you what branches are later, but just remember now that git checkout changes branches. And I will choose this commit, copy it, paste it. Okay, it's giving me a warning. That's okay. And now let's see what index.html is. See, it's div hello world again, and I didn't even do anything. I just changed what I did is basically check out an earlier revision of our Git history. So this is a pretty simple example, but I hope you can imagine the possibilities of Git. So let's go back to our branch. and check it again if everything's okay. Yeah, it's back to normal. You see div hello world and PM a paragraph. Okay, so storing the history of the changes on your computer is not really useful because, as I mentioned before, that code can be pushed to a remote repository somewhere on the server. And by a remote repository, I mean GitHub. So let me show you how to set everything up. It's pretty simple, but you will need to learn how to do it. So we don't need Git anymore. Now we open up GitHub. This is basically what you will be seeing if you register to GitHub right now. But if you're already a user, you shouldn't even struggle with creating a new repository. So we click on Create Repository. We give it a name. I don't know. What was it? What was it called? Git demo. Okay, we don't need a description. It's public. We don't need to initialize with anything. So we create an empty repository on GitHub in our account. And now we have three options. We can create a new repository. We can push an existing repository or import code from another repository. So in our case, we need to push an existing repository because we already created one locally on our machine. We have it right here on our Git demo folder. You see the index.html and the Git. So we need to just basically copy these commands and paste them in. Yep, and that's basically it. We now refresh this page and we see our changes. We see the same index.html with div hello world, PM a paragraph. We can also watch the commits. As we see, our first commit, which was basically creating the file, adding the text div hello world, and then second commit, adding one more line, as I showed you before with git diff. We just added a paragraph, and now this code is right here on the GitHub. We now call it a remote origin or repository. So any questions? Because I'm pausing for a second and we will move on to branches. Would I suggest memorizing the commands? Yes, I would, because you will be using them a lot. Okay, so let's continue with branching. Let me briefly explain what a branch in Git is. So branching means that you diverge from the main line of development and continue to do work without messing with that main line. What that means is our changes are currently only in the branch called main, as you see right here. And we will now create a new branch called develop. And now we can make changes in develop without affecting the main branch. So if I ever need to step back in time, we could just go back to our main branch and the current version of work will still be here. The current version, I mean this current file. So let me show you how branching is done. So we type in git branch. The command git branch basically creates a new branch and we give it a name, as I said, develop. Okay. Now we need to check out to the develop. Okay. And now let's make some changes because currently we are in the branch develop. We are no longer in the branch main, which is this branch. We just did two commits on this branch right here, if you remember. First commit, second commit. It was in the main branch. And now on our local repository, we created a new branch called develop and we checked it out. So we are currently in develop. It says right here, switched to branch develop. So now we can make a new file. Just call it styles, CSS, doesn't matter really. And we give it some content. Okay. Now we do we stage the file, of course. Git add dot. We check if everything is staged. We see new file style CSS is staged. Okay, so that means we need to commit with the message style changes. Okay, and now one important new thing. We done everything until up this part. So now the code is inside our local machine, all the history. But to be able to put the code right here on the remote repository, there's a very important command that you will use, well, basically all the time, is git push. What git push does is basically just pushes everything locally onto the remote repository. So we just do that. Yeah, we need to set the upstream first. It says right here. Okay, we're done. So now let's go back to GitHub. Nothing changed here as expected, but we have a new branch, develop. And we can see that we have everything we have from the main branch because we branched off main. So we have everything main has and our new change, style changes, which we just did. As you can see, style CSS and just basic style. So I think you now understand that the main branch is left alone because we unbranched into a new branch called develop. So main has not changed at all, but we created a new branch called develop. And we pushed our changes to the develop branch. So it remains changed. Is that clear? Or should I explain it a bit more? Because this is pretty important. It doesn't matter, Tautvidas, what editor you choose, because I don't think you will be using it, to be honest. If it lets you choose bash, then choose bash. Okay, so Abdin wants us to explain it once more. We, from the start, we had only one branch called main. We always have that main branch. It's automatic. We had that branch. We made our two commits, my first commit, my second commit. Then we decided that we want to make changes on another branch. So we created, we created a new branch called develop. We checked it out. We put a new item in it, added some content, and we committed it while we were in the develop branch, not in the main branch, in the develop branch. So now the code changes were pushed not into the main branch, but into the develop branch, as I mentioned. And that's why main has remained unchanged, but develop got our changes right here. Style CSS with the style in it. Vladimir, you can't use GitHub, but you can use Git. GitHub it's basically a website. It's not a command line interface, so you can use Git. Yes, you can use Git from anywhere, from any command line interface, basically. Okay, if there are no questions about branches, I hope you understand this. Well, you will have a lot of practice with this, so it's okay if you don't fully understand it, but I hope you get the basics. So now we have made changes in the develop branch, and I will show you how we can merge the changes made in the develop branch to the main branch. We can do that by simply using the git merge command, which I will show you. Git merge, but we will not use it now because the best practice while merging things into the main branch is to always make pull requests. And a pull request lets you tell others about changes you've pushed to your branch in a repository on GitHub. Once a pull request is opened, you can discuss and review the potential changes with other collaborators and developers, and that follow-up commits before your changes are merged into the base branch. So let's see how that works. It will be a bit simpler. So to create a pull request, there is no command in Git because every single repository does it a bit differently. So on GitHub, while you're in a repository, you just push pull requests. And there we go. It already says that develop had recent pushes 4 minutes ago. It was our code change we just did. So now what we can do is create a new pull request. We choose to which branch, from which branch we want to merge. So we want to merge into the main branch from develop, right? Because develop has changes and main does not have changes. As we can see right here, showing one changed file with one addition, which is our style CSS. And why is that? Because main doesn't have style CSS and develop does. As I mentioned, because we pushed our style CSS file into the develop branch and not in the main branch, main doesn't know anything about style CSS. And now we would like to merge develop into main. So we choose to merge into main from develop. So everything's all right. We are able to merge. We create the pull request. So now what you need to do is almost in a real world, you will always leave a comment explaining what you have done. So I will say I added some styles to the application. And this is the pull request name. So I will leave it in style changes, I guess, because this is self-explanatory. And I will push create pull request. And now we have our first pull request. We can see right here into the pull requests, we have one. It's open. I can come in here, see the commits, style changes, as we have right here, right? And I can see file changed as well, which is the style CSS with the style text in it. So what I can do now is basically select the pull request. And for some reason, there it is. I can merge the pull request. As I mentioned, merging, it's combining one branch with the other. So there are options too. You can squash, but this is out of the scope for this course. So we push merge, confirm, and that's it. We now have everything in the main file. If you remember, main did not have the style CSS, but after the merge, which is seen right here, merge pull request, main now has styles from develop because we merged develop into main. Does that make any sense? See right here. Yes, you can use git bash. It doesn't really matter. I do not recommend just repeating everything I'm doing. I'm just showing you because, as I mentioned before, if you don't understand something now, you can just rewatch the lecture afterwards at your own pace. So I would ask you now to just watch, and if you have questions on the fly, just ask them now. And you do not need to repeat anything I do because you will have exercise relating to Git. You will even have two exercises. One is related to Git and the other is a test on Git. So either way, you will most certainly watch it once more to at least write down the commands because the commands will be in the test. Okay. Any more questions about this? Because we have one more, well, maybe two more things I would like to cover. So if there are no more questions, I will just continue with the lecture. So you may someday find yourself wanting to contribute to someone else's project because Git is about collaboration. Or maybe you'd like to use someone's project as the starting point of your own. So this process is called forking. So let me just go to any big library like jQuery, for example. And creating a fork is producing a personal copy of someone else's project. So jQuery is not my project. It's a big project with 275 contributors. So what if I wanted to make adjustments to this code? I just click fork. It's right here. Right here. I just push fork. It's gonna take some time. And it's right here. I can see it under my name now because this is my new account, RS demo, and I have the jQuery. And it says forks from jQuery. So forks act as a sort of bridge between the original repository and your personal copy. So you can submit pull requests to help the other people's projects better by offering your changes to the original project, which I just showed you with the pull request. Only this time you can do it to another repository. You create a pull request and they review it. And if they like it, they merge it. If they don't, they just decline you. So you will not be using forking during this course, but I just want you to know the possibilities. And please note that forking in this case is GitHub's functionality. It's not Git. So there is no git fork command. So please do keep that in mind. There is no git fork command. This is a common mistake. And one more thing about Git, it's a pretty useful tool once you get the hang of the basic Git commands, is a GUI Git client. There are plenty of those in the market, but I personally prefer to use Git extensions. Another popular free option is SourceTree. And what it does is basically help you do the same tasks, but with using a GUI instead of a terminal. Let me quickly demonstrate how that works with our repository we just created. So Git demo. We can see the very same thing. My first commit, my second commit, and style changes. We can also see the branches. I think we need to fetch. Yeah. This merge happened, if you remember, develop into main. So basically what you're seeing here is the full Git history of this repository. Let me just go step by step. We started with our first commit, which was 21 minutes ago from now. Then we added one more. Oh, wait, let me just show you the diff. Yeah, we created the indexed HTML file with the div hello world again. Then the second commit, it just added one paragraph. I'm a paragraph. Then we created a new branch called develop. It's right here with the style changes and created the file style CSS and style. And then at the end, we merged with the pull request. It says right here, merge pull request one from LTRS demo develop. So that means merge develop into main, which you can see right here. Just this develop branch goes and just goes into the main branch. So this Git client, it basically can do everything you want it to do. You can even use the Git bash terminal here and do the same Git commands. Git add, you can basically do anything, all these commands. So whatever you can do with the terminal, you can do with the GUI. Personally, a GUI client is easier to use than a console for me, but I know a lot of people who prefer using Git with the terminal. So it all comes down to personal preference. I think you should learn the basics of Git using the terminal because you will not be doing complex work yet. Maybe after a while, when your commit history is huge and you need to navigate through it, maybe try a GUI client. But I would recommend, at least for the first few tasks, use the terminal, learn it. Maybe you'll like it more and maybe you won't even need this. I will leave the download link for this app anyway. Oh, and I will show you the basic functionality, of course. So let me just do some changes to the file again, add content styles 2, whatever. So now we have the same thing here. We have unstaged changes, which we can see by writing git status. We can see modified style CSS, but it's not staged. The same thing is right here. So we can stage it and stage it. We of course can do the same with git add, and it will become staged. Just refresh it. You see, it's staged. So everything we do with the terminal, we can do with this app, as I mentioned. So how to do a commit? You just put in the message here, add the second style, and push commit. And that is it. We, of course, as I mentioned before, git commit only keeps the changes on your local machine. We still need to push to the remote. So we can either do git push here, or I can just show you how to do it from here. Just click the button push, select which branch to push and where. You almost never need to change anything here. You just click push. You wait a bit. And that's it. If you see the origin and the branch name, that means that the remote repository is synced with your computer. The red branch names are what's in your computer, and the green branch names are what's on the remote repository. So we can just check GitHub to see if everything works. Git demo. We made changes to the develop branch. Add the second style, it's right here, style 2. And we did it all with using the GUI client. We could have done it with the terminal, but we did it with the client. So it's up to you. You can use the terminal, you can use the GUI. I will share the link. And I think I've touched, oh wait, there's one more thing after Git. So if you have questions regarding Git, feel free to ask them now. Is this the same that Git Kraken is? I don't think it's the same because Git Kraken is no longer free, and I think it offers a bit wider functionality. But you will not need Git Kraken because this is more than enough for you for basic operations. Is GitHub Desktop app allowed? Of course it is, but as I mentioned, you should get used to using a terminal. So you don't need to modify files using the terminal, but you should get used to using the most popular things like git add, git commit, and git push. And that will be really helpful for you. Okay, so any more questions? You should watch the lecture again after it's finished. Or you can just type in download Git and that's it. Or find the link somewhere here. It was somewhere here. Yeah, it's right here. Just find the message I sent. It's git-scm.com. It's earlier in the chat. The Git extension is right above your chat bubble. Okay. So one last thing before the lecture ends. You will need to download an IDE or integrated development environment. And what is an IDE and why do you need it? Well, it's basically an application that makes programming easier. IDEs increase programmer productivity by combining common activities of writing software, into a single application, which you can see on the right. It lets you edit source code, build executables, debug on the fly, and much, much more. And we will use Visual Studio Code for the entirety of this course, but feel free to use whatever you're comfortable with. And if you want to learn more about what IDEs are, what are their functions and their different types, you can watch a lecture from a previous run about IDEs, because unfortunately IDEs are not in the scope of this lecture. So I will paste a link to the video so you can watch it at your own time, because you will have a lot of time now. I think 3 weeks. Wait, let me just run. Right here, the video. What I want to highlight about IDEs shortly is that you should practice using your keyboard only. And the sooner you start learning, the better. Try to use your mouse as little as possible. I mean, you might not be used to not using your mouse, but not using your mouse while programming is a really good skill. And if you start learning now, you will be a pro before you start actually working on real apps. And I mean it. It takes about a month max to get used to. So I will paste also some useful combinations for VS Code. Let me just find the chat. Useful keyboard combinations, which you should learn. It's my personal strong recommendation. And I think that is about it. The first lecture is over, and I hope that everything was clear. I tried to teach you the very basics of Git, so just enough for you to complete your first task, for which you have almost 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. No. So you have more than enough time to read through the computer science course I showed you at the beginning, watch the IDE video, invite your friends to join this run, and complete the home task. I will also, I already did add the quiz, so feel free to try on the quiz right now. I'll just remind you, go to auto test and select git test, and that's it. You just make the test right here. Don't worry if you fail, because you have 5 attempts, and after that you have more attempts, so don't worry. And yeah, I will post a summary of this lecture and your tasks to the Discord channel. And you can also ask any questions related to this lecture in there, if you don't have any questions now, because right now I think we are done. Yeah, so we can just have a Q&A session if we have any questions. In actual practice, when do we need to create branches? If collaborating with other colleagues or to distinguish workflow. In actual practice, branching is made, imagine this, you are working on a product. Imagine you're working on Facebook and you need to implement a like button, because imagine Facebook doesn't have a like button, but there's a whole functioning app, except for there is no like button. So you have a task of creating it. So this would be the perfect time to just create a new branch called feature like button from the main source, so that you can develop in peace and you don't care, because creating the like button will take you, well, let's say a week. And if you wouldn't create a branch, then other people couldn't update the main code, because you will not be finished. But since you create a new branch, they don't care about if you're finished or not, because the main branch is not affected by your work, because you're doing your changes on another branch. Is that clear? Thank you, it's clear. Okay. So next question, what IDE do you think is the best for beginners? There is no right answer. You can watch the video. my colleague compares free most popular editors. To my personal experience, I never liked anything better than VS Code. Let me just VS Code, if someone didn't hear it. I like it a lot because you can basically do anything with it. You can customize it. It's lightweight. You don't need to have a strong computer. It doesn't lag at all. So I think it's good. But there is no such thing as IDE for beginners because they are not complex. They let you write code without any troubles. So you should still watch the video though, the first video. What course we have to learn? Oh, yeah, I mentioned reading through. Let me just. You know what? I'll just post it in the Discord. So I'll post it in one place so people don't ask multiple questions, if you don't mind. What about the links in this chat? Will they disappear? I don't think so, but you might as well save them or join Discord because I will post the same links there. So yeah, better off to join Discord. I will leave. I would not recommend using Visual Studio because it's pretty huge and you don't need this huge of an app. But if you want to, you can use it. But it's the same as Visual Studio Code, only a lot bigger, which means you might lag. It has lower loading times and so on. But I'm not prohibiting you. If you want to use it, then go ahead. Of course, you can use WebStorm as well. Anna, lectures vary from, I would say, 1 hour to 2 hours tops. It really depends on the topic. It might be even shorter than 1 hour, but yeah, it shouldn't be no longer than 2 hours. And don't forget, you can always leave or not attend the lecture because it will be uploaded onto YouTube. Most of the times, Vladislava, 2 times every week, you can just see the schedule. The next one will be on the 6th of April. You can see the date. I think I shared the link. If I didn't, I'll just share it to Discord. I'll just share the invite once again. People who missed it, join Discord. This is the main communication channel. Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you for joining us, and I hope you learned something today.
Thank you for great intro and amazing lecture. Thank you at all.
Thank you.